Hey everybody, it's Rob, National Fire Radio. Very excited tonight. I am joined by the beautiful Melissa Lawlor, our field correspondent for National Fire Radio. And with me tonight are two very esteemed gentlemen who I've gotten the chance to meet at Revolutionary Fire Tactics at the lake. Sean Duffy and Pablo. Pablo, how do you say your last name? Because I'm going to screw that up, and I always
Not a
mess.
problem. You say it general, like if you're saying like the word general, but just without the role at the end, Jenner.
Jenner. Okay, so Pablo Jenner. I got the opportunity at Revolutionary Fire Tactics at the lake to sit in there, build your. It was build your culture or build your own culture. What was the class where we had the beer?
Oh, yeah, that was build your culture, professionalism, or minimalism. That was the name of that class.
So, and I've sat in Sean's classes for 2 years. This year, Pablo wasn't able to join us at the lake, which we missed him severely. Sean tried to put me on the spot in the class a couple times, and I'm still, paying the price for the regalia at that one. But no, I'm just kidding. It was a great time.
No, you did good, man. You did great.
But awesome people. So, guys, like, kind of tell me, like, one of you duke it out and see who goes first. But how'd you guys start and how'd you guys meet?
I'll send it, Sean.
Oh, I always got to go first. All right. So actually, it's kind of weird how Pablo and I met. I was in a time, not many people know this. I was working in Michigan, and during that time in Michigan, like firefighters were getting laid off like crazy. I mean, it was insane. Everybody was getting hired on grants, and you just didn't know if you had a job. And I was fortunate enough that I did land in a place in a department that was budgeted. It just wasn't the right fit for me, and I gave it a good honest 7 months, and just kind of told my wife, hey, listen, I miss the fire department I came from. I miss the guys. That's been such a huge part of my fire service career, and I really just need to go put back into my fire pension, right? And at least get that locked in. And at least she was very supportive about that. So we moved to Michigan, and we moved from Michigan, and we got back to Florida, and I wound up getting hired in Pasco County, and Pablo worked there. So he came into our new hire class a couple times. He did like the truck week, and I think what they call it, Pablo, they call it Pablo's week or something like that.
Yeah, it was a culture building day, basically, just kind of like an introductory to the department, and just kind of like a new thing that we're trying to just build, implement in the region. So yeah, Pablo, they delved it.
Yeah, so that's where I met him, and I just remember like he's up there talking, and I'm like, oh man, I've never met somebody who is as passionate as me in this job. Like I've got to kind of befriend him, So we started talking. He got me into a training that was coming up like the week after, which was Can Confidence by the Event Enter Search guys. We did that through our Fools chapter, the Pasco Fools, and it just kind of evolved from there. One thing led to the next, and we became really good friends, and eventually wound up being stationed at the same firehouse for a little over a year together. So lots of good times. Probably one of the most real people I know is Pablo. He's not afraid to pull punches and tell you how he feels about stuff. So I highly respect that. He's damn good fireman, and probably one of my mentors too. Throughout that year-long period there, I was starting to kind of dive into special operations disciplines and do like rope rescue and things like that. So he taught me a ton about that stuff. We'd be out there in the bay practicing all the time, and then our relationship as friends just kind of bonded. And we eventually went down to Orlando Fire Conference in 2019, and we're just sitting there, and as firefighters do, right, just talking shop. And we're both incredibly frustrated with certain things that we've been experiencing. And Pablo had this tagline that he was using pretty frequently on the Instagram page. And he says, it's about building your culture. And I just kind of looked at him. I'm like, that's it, right? Because we had talked about developing a class and maybe doing some training, but like trying to encompass it under something that wasn't Pablo and Sean, right? Just something different. And when he said that, I'm like, I think that's it. right? That's what it's about. That's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to build a culture within the fire service, within our personal lives, just be generally like good people. And yeah, that's kind of the backstory of where him and I met and what kind of led to the name and the evolution of what we have today.
It's awesome. So Pablo, how did you get involved with this fire service stuff? Like, but I've talked with Sean on the phone, but I really haven't gotten the chance to speak with you and talk about the beginnings and stuff. So kind of take us down that road real quick.
Man, I wish that I could tell you that, like, oh, I have a long lineage of firemen in my family. I don't. I kind of stumbled into the fire service, and I think by virtue of stumbling into the fire service, kind of leads me to a lot of love in the fire service. And you, hear me out on this. You got so first and foremost, I was a baseball player once upon a time, many moons ago, and once I leave college, and nothing really comes of my career. I go back to Miami. My hometown is Miami, Florida, and I leave Indiana, Franklin, Indiana to be exact. And when I leave Indiana, it's about 25 miles southwest of Indianapolis. And when I leave Indiana and I go back down to Miami, I'm kind of just meandering around, figuring out what to do. So anyway, long story short, I get to a poker night one night at in a buddy's house, and he is a fireman for the city of Coral Gables, and he's just like, man, your personality would actually be pretty good in the fire service. You should do a ride along, see how you like it. So anyway, I do a ride along, Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. Love it. End up going to EMT school first. After EMT school, went to fire school, and then after fire school, worked at a private ambulance company for just a hair under 2 years, just working on, it's the and I put this into quotations, no disrespect to any of those guys. In the sense of South Florida speaking, I know that private ambulance companies across the country play a big role in the 911 system. In the sense of South Florida, before I piss anybody off, it's more of the minor leagues to fire rescue, because fire rescue handles most 90+% of the 911 calls, whereas the private ambulance companies are taking care of the private EMS and inter-facilities type stuff. So a lot of the fire rescue wants kind of that experience of the private ambulance sector, getting your feet wet into EMS before getting into the big leagues, so to speak. And like I said, that's just a South Florida thing. I know that AMR and all type of companies are huge across the country, so I apologize to anybody out there. It's just a South Florida thing. But yeah, after working there in EMS, after going to fire school, going to EMS, I applied to everywhere in the United States, literally, not in the United States, excuse me, in the state of Florida, literally from Key West all the way up to Tallahassee. Tallahassee was my most northern department that I applied to. Monroe County, which is the Keys, the Florida Keys, I also applied to. So literally from the Florida Keys to Tallahassee. And whoever, obviously aware of the state of Florida, hey, we ain't exactly Rhode Island, we're a fucking big ass state. So it was a large trek to go apply to these departments. And Marion County, Florida, which is where the State Fire College is at, which is our city, our bigger city is the city of Ocala. It's basically north central Florida, about an hour and a half north of Orlando, around Gainesville, Gator country. Picked me up, and yeah, that was back in 2008. And that's how I got into the fire service, as far as like my background from literally a ball player, failed ball player to the fire service. Now, funny thing is though, if I may get into that, this will open a can of worms, but I think that's literally why I fell in love with the fire service, because I stumbled into it. I had no preconceived notions coming into the fire service, brother, at all. Like nowadays, I think you got guys coming into the fire service with preconceived notions. Like our secret is literally out. You could, you work an X amount of days. If you're not on a call, there's recliners at the station. There's workout equipment. There's all that shit, because of social media, because of just stuff like along those lines, where we are in a very transparent world nowadays. Our secret of how good our job is. We always said that is the best job in the world. We've always heard that. People now in the social media world and the transparency of the world that we live in, take that, not in the sense like how we take it, where as far as like we view it as the best job in the world because because of the things that we get to do, because of the lives that we get to affect. Some of the people that get into it now view it as the best job in the world because they work 10 days a month, get to sit on a recliner where they're not fucking running calls, work out, play some basketball, and have a second job. So our secret is out. So we have a lot of a big, I've noticed since basically 2000, let's just say 2013 and above, 2012 and above, when social media really starts picking up, I noticed a different type of crowd that really does get in, into the fire service. Whereas opposed to, I got in, man, I had no idea. I'm not going to lie to you. I won't sit here and be like, oh, I knew better. No, I had nothing. I had no clue about the fire service. I literally got in and I saw the brotherhood that's reminded me so much of a baseball dugout or baseball locker room, stuff like that. I saw people going to, guys going to calls and just helping out. I remember being on the back of an ambulance, because ambulance in South Florida go to structure fire, being in the back of an ambulance doing ride-alongs. And I remember going to a structure fire with Miami-Dade County, and the boys literally throwing on their gear and I'm like, I'm fucking looking at them like a little kid, like, man, these guys are fucking cool. This is some cool shit. And I really got into the fire service where I really found a love for it. I thought it was legitimately cool. I love the hierarchy. I love the senior guy. I literally remember doing an EMT ride in Miami-Dade County, and one of the senior guys comes out. It's like fucking, I don't know, 8:30 in the morning, and I'm like staring at the aerial, and the guy comes out with this cup of coffee, and he just stares at me, and I'm like staring at him, and he stares at me. He goes, "You know what truck you're on, son?" I'm like, "Well, the rescue, sir." And he goes, "Well, you better go check it off." I don't know, it's like shit like that literally made me fall in love with it, man. Like, it was so cool. It was all so cool. And it legitimately, to this day, I tell you, it was a genuinely falling in love with something. Instead of someone, I'm saying, aside from my wife, I love my wife, but like actually falling in love with something. I fell in love with the fire service, and because I stumbled onto it because I had no idea about it. And that's kind of like where I'm at right now.
I think that's awesome that in Florida there's an opportunity for you to do the ride along and actually see that, because at least up here in the Northeast, there's no opportunity to really, I don't think anymore, like, fill out paperwork and come right along and see what it's about and get that perspective. I mean, and you're totally on point with the aspect of our job becoming cool and being the best job because of a recliner and the work schedule and stuff, and not like, but I think we got to circle back to that because it's an interesting conversation, especially with what you guys talk about in culture building and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys get together, you meet, and Sean, you were hitting on it because you said that, it's all about building your culture. So is that where really you guys started to, I don't want to say to spark the fire to get things moving, but like because you were working together before then?
Right. Yeah, no, it's we did a couple of like trainings. Pablo and I were both pretty aggressive on the training. Like, hey, we need to get up to the training center because in Pasco, I mean, gosh, we had this beautiful training center, man. Like, we go there whenever we want it. We go there off duty. Like, you could put in, as long as it was like within like 24 hours in advance, like you could put in and say, hey, we want to go up there and do some training. And the truck company and the squad and all that, like they were up there doing cool stuff all the time. And so Pablo and I were, we were blessed to kind of get brought into some of those things, and they let us do our thing, whether it was like hose on advancement or search or anything like that. Sometimes it would be maybe a new hire orientation we got to do a couple things at, like so definitely we got to work together in that realm. And man, this is when I really, like, Pablo had already kind of done some teaching things in locally and in the region and stuff. And I was just trying to branch out into spreading my passion and whatever knowledge I had onto other people, and he calls me up one night. There's a Cigar City Fools training going on, and I'll never forget it because he says, "Don't fuck this up." That's his exact words. He's like, "Hey, Poppy, what are you doing tomorrow?" And I'm like, "I'm not doing anything." He goes, "Okay, I need your help doing some like forcible entry and stuff like that at this training. Don't fuck this up." I said, "Yeah, no problem. I'll be right there." And I went out there and they had me like, doing some of that stuff. It was just an awesome experience, and afterwards we kind of went out for some beer and talked about it. And man, we just kind of did little things like that here and there. And we're like, we gotta do our own thing. So the idea came about, him and I were like, hey, let's do a search class. Cause at that time, like, and I don't want to say anything bad about where we worked or anything else like that, but at that time I had enough experience throughout my fire service career to know that I was going to fires and I was sitting there and I was getting very, very frustrated, just like watching everything but the search taken priority. Right. And the idea of like, if we found somebody, like, oh, they were probably dead anyway, like that kind of stuff. So we both were pretty passionate about truck work and the search in general. And we decided that we were going to do this class. And man, I don't think any of us, him or I, really knew what was in store after that. It was just mainly bred off frustration and experience. And we had an opportunity to do it like once or twice in Pasco at the training center, with the truck company and stuff. And then a buddy of mine in Polk County, right after they had that, not too long after they had that fatal fire, reached out. And I remember calling Pablo like, oh my God, dude, this has to be right. Like we have to go in there and do this properly, right? Like after this national event just took place and like, we're going to be the ones going in there and doing this thing. Like it just has to be like something that's worth it. Right. And we did it and it got good feedback and everybody enjoyed it. And from there, man, it was just like one thing after another. I'd be calling Pablo up. Hey, we got another class going. Are you free? And yeah, I'm free. And we went, Oregon, and we started going all over the country. And I just remember thinking like, this is fucking insane. Like, this is crazy. This little idea that I had just to preach my own experiences and bring some like data and real world, stuff into there and preach my failures and what I've learned just kind of like turned into this thing. And that was 3 years ago, and it hasn't slowed down since, and, Pablo's been there. He's my right-hand man. He's been there every step of the way. And, we do some other things too, but like, we've always tried to stay true to that whole, like, hey, listen, build your culture is the bread and butter of anything. Like, yeah, we might be teaching a search class, but we're going to teach you how to implement a positive, aggressive search culture into your organization and why. Here's the argument that you can make of why you need to do this and where we're winning versus where we're losing. And, so whatever it is we're doing, it always centers around that whole, we want to give you the tools, because we've been there, and hell, we're still fighting some of those battles, right?
Yeah.
We want to give you the tools that wherever you're at currently in your organization and wherever your frustrations are, that you can at least go back with something and start laying that groundwork and that foundation to start changing it, right? Like enhancing what's already there for the better and just kind of do that. So yeah, that's really how it caught on. It was, I think, completely by accident, born out of a lot of frustration and passion. And people just latched onto that and they liked it. And we've been pretty fortunate. Like we get emails and messages from people all the time. Like, hey, I took your class, I did this thing, and I had a rescue at a fire. So thank you. And man, that's better than any amount of money, in my opinion, is knowing that somebody was able to take what they learned back with them in a relatively short amount of time, use it on the fire ground, and have a significantly like different outcome than maybe what they would have had beforehand. So that just kind of brings it full circle for me anyway, of like, this is why we do this, right?
Well, and I think too, I mean, Melissa's a commissioner, so she's approving people to go to your class, right? And I'm sure after this, she's going to like book you guys to come up here. But but no, in all seriousness, like what I love about your classes, and you just hit on it, is like you teach a skill, you teach a class, but you're also giving the students the ability to build the culture of that class back at their home department. Because how many times, and I get it all the time, right? Like I think it's always funny. People are like, oh, you're Rob from National Fire Radio, you get to do all this stuff, and I'm like, no, I have the same struggle. In fact, I think it's 10 times as worse of what you're doing coming home from this conference, because it's all the time for me. So like
Right.
to give somebody those skills to bring it back and build the culture up is huge, because we always want people to come back and be like, oh, hey, Sean, you just went to this, you just went to
Yeah.
FDIC, or you went to Firehouse Expo, or Pablo, you were at Water on the Fire. Tell me about what happened. But that doesn't actually happen in our firehouses.
No.
And
Right.
then when people
No,
are
it
like, oh, hey, I learned something from this class, to be like, Kurt, who? Yeah, you know what, kid? Like,
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I don't get Ray what? No, McCormick's are the spices in the cabinet. Shut up,
Yeah.
kid. And like,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, come on, like, so like that's
We
good
all-
that you have that.
we all have that same struggle. We all have that same struggle, and it's funny. And real quick, before I'm sure Melissa's chomping at the bits to get in there, but real quick, just to hop on what Sean just said about like, and what you're talking about, instilling a culture, and sometimes it's even more important just to uh, talk to them about how to implement certain things and stuff like that. Legitimately, if you think about like the name Build Your Culture in itself, and Sean alluded to it earlier, like before we got together, I was hashtagging that on my personal Instagram page, build your own culture, build your own culture. Essentially, what I was trying to hashtag with that meaning of build your own culture was not everybody comes from an insert department, whatever comes to mind right here, but not everybody comes from a 200-year-old fire department that goes back to the fucking days of wagons and horses. So when you're working in a department, big or small, that really, dates back to 1970, 1975, 1978, that type of stuff. There's essentially in the year 2021, you might be reaching your first round of full-blown retirements, maybe your second round of retirements. Like, you don't have that type of culture behind you to come back and say, hey, I talked to so-and-so from New York City, and in New York City, they have an assignment board that says chauffeur and this and that. They're gonna be like, shut the fuck up. I know who comes in the morning and drives. Why do I need an assignment board? Stuff like that. So it literally was the build your own culture stuff, which eventually obviously evolves to build your culture. Literally is just a way of how to build your culture, within our realm of what we do, and stay within your wheelhouse, but still keep those traditions of those big city brothers that date back 200 years, and you can still bring those traditions into your own firehouse, not necessarily try to copy anything, but be original, but at the same time bring the traditions that keep our profession alive and beautiful. And that's literally where the build your own culture comes into play. So when we whether we teach a class, whether it be search and rescue, whether it be literally the build your culture class, the build your culture class is Sean and I literally. He's a tailboard fireman. I'm a tailboard fireman. We're not promoted officers. It's literally two tailboard firemen talking about how to keep the culture alive within a firehouse by the tailboard fireman. Like it's our little twist on it's our modern twist tailboard version of pride and ownership, of fully involved. It's our twist on it. Build your culture from the tailboard standpoint, and how to keep that drive alive. Really, it's a beautiful thing.
No, 100%. And I think we've all been in a situation where the culture may not have been the most positive for us. So like one of the benefits of just experiencing you guys in the first place is being like getting that shot of adrenaline to like kind of boost you back into the fire service. And then it's like sharing the tips, tricks, and hacks of how to get this culture game going. Because I think, Pablo, I remember you telling me that like when you first started out, like, and I believe it was you, well, both you and Sean worked in the same place. So like there was a lack of culture, and just how much that affected the job. And we hear that with the podcast and the platform. We hear people who are starting in these new fire departments, and they're literally building sterilized firehouses.
Yeah.
And like you wouldn't tell from looking at the kitchen if you worked for the fire department or you worked for Lockheed Martin, and it was a cafeteria or something like that.
Yeah,
I agree with that. And it's such a huge thing. Like when you walk into a firehouse, you need to have, it always weirds me out to see an office building. It's not an office building, it's a fucking firehouse. Put some pictures up. And by the way, I'm really anal about how to take pictures. I'm not one of these weirdos that fucking take pictures in front of people's houses that are burning down or someone's cars that's fucking mangled that died. Be very professional, be very discreet about it. Take some discreet pictures and take some professional pictures. Those pictures go back to your firehouse walls. They don't go on social media, they don't go on Facebook, they don't go on all this nonsense. If someone is literally recording it, let me rephrase that. If someone is recording it, someone is there as a media, as I know, and I don't know, I think it's a term of endearment. You guys sit in the Northeast, call it a buff. If someone's there buffing your scene, stuff like that, hey, I get it. That is a different thing as opposed to me fucking taking a selfie in front of someone's mangled car, you know. Plus that buff, from what I've seen across the country, most buffs are very respectful, very professional of how they post their stuff. But I am huge on getting those pictures and putting them up on a firehouse wall. That builds tradition that literally will last for years. And not only that, not only does it build tradition from the standpoint of the guys and the girls that are sitting at the firehouse, but the guys and the girls that now are coming into the firehouse. So my old, one of my old houses, you know, it was a little bit of a blank space. So I put a bunch of me and the crew. I don't want to say myself. Me and the crew put a bunch of pictures up. Actually, Sean and I's old house. We put a bunch of pictures up. It was received well. Whatever. It was good. It was good. A few months ago, the president of the Pasco Fools, a guy by the name of Steve Agle. He's good man. He's the president of the Pasco Fools down there. Man, he sends me a picture, and it was a beautiful picture. He says it was a probie that had walked in, you know, like it was assigned you to the firehouse, and he walked in, and the picture of it was Steve from the dinner table, basically taking a picture of the probie, looking up at all the pictures. That right there is the foundation builder. I know it sounds weird to say, like, well, let me rephrase that. The training division and all that stuff, that's all your foundation building. But I'm talking about that first day, just walking in, you know, like even before he introduces himself, because hopefully he's there like an hour or so before even any of his shift arrives. But after he introduces himself to the other shift, stuff like that, gets all his stuff done, man, you got your probie just looking at the walls saying, man, this fucking house goes to work, or something along those lines. That's that foundation builder. Everything we do in the fire service has to have a foundation builder. Your fire department, if your training division sucks, your foundation sucks. I'm gonna tell you this right now. So my name's Pablo General. I'm telling you, if your training division sucks, your fucking foundation sucks. That is straight up. I will die on that molehill fucking 7 ways from Sunday. Your training division is the backbone of your entire department, because that is the first people that the new recruit sees is the training division. Who do they see first? They go to fucking HR and all that shit, and they do paperwork, and they sign their life away, and they high risk this and high risk that. This is your benefits and this is your retirement, all that shit. They're tired of fucking signing paperwork, and then they go, and the first thing they see at their training division is some dude that can't throw a ladder, or some dude, or the training division is kind of shitty, and they don't even know what to do with them, and they start telling them to pluck weeds or some shit. Then I'm telling you right now, show me a training division that lets their probies how to fucking pluck weeds, and I'm gonna show you a fire department that sucks.
That's pretty good.
Made into t-shirts.
Yeah, no, that's going to be the next Build Your Culture t-shirt.
That's right.
Right on that.
Yeah, no, we had so many of those conversations too, Pablo and I, like talking about it, and just like, man, it's just, you look, and the worst thing I think a training department can do for their fire department is just repeat fire academy, right?
Yep.
Like, what are you doing? Like, these kids already know how to get themselves hurt and you possibly killed. Like, they already learned that for the past 6 months. Why don't we teach them like real world things, like things that actually going to matter, like how to move hose properly, you know, and you know, how to search correctly, not holding on to somebody, and, you know, spread out. And, you know, and gosh, man, how many times we have that conversation, Pablo? It was like almost daily, like, what the fuck are we doing? Like,
Well,
we have to make this better. This has to be better. And not just, I'm not singling out one department or another. I mean,
No, a bunch of departments.
we would literally sit there and watch like Facebook videos, or somebody would send us something, and we would just be like, oh my God, this is happening all over the country. And it's not these new people coming in. It's not their fault. They don't know any better. They're just doing what they're told to do and what they're shown. But for the people who are supposed to be these seasoned veterans and in charge of training, you have failed. Like, miserably. And that's what we set out to change. I think that was our driving force, to be like, we've got to change this. And if we can only change this within the four walls of our firehouse, then it's a start, you know, and hopefully it'll branch out from there. And, you know, that was kind of the premise behind a lot of our motivation, I think.
Yeah.
Is there a moment, and since you guys have been doing this together, like that you can say, like, Pablo, what are you most proud of? Like, what was been the most impactful thing for you in this revolution of bringing up of building your culture?
Absolutely. Being respected for the firemen that I am personally. And what I mean by that is, too many people think that to have a seat at the table, you have to work for the New York City Fire Department, Chicago Fire Department, LA County, Miami-Dade County, Orlando, whatever, these big boy names that are extremely, extremely respected, that I hold to a high degree. By no means am I saying that, but I always thought to myself, some of the best firemen you never heard of, and this is a saying by a good friend of ours that it's on our cadre, Lieutenant Tony Gillen, from the Marion County Fire Department. He's on the Build Your Culture cadre, and Tony always said some of the best firemen that you've never heard of are sitting right here, and that holds true to whatever department you're at. And so what am I most proud of as far as like our accomplishments within the fire service? So what am I most proud of my accomplishment is, I believe that I have earned a seat at the table with some of the respected guys across the country, not trying to be something I'm not. When I say, I have this conversation with Sean all the time and stuff like that. The day that I start, so I teach truck company operations, and when I say I teach, I regurgitate field-based experiences, field-based failures and field-based experiences. That's what I'm like. That's what I like to regurgitate. I cannot stand that word teach. It's kind of weird. But when we talk about our stuff, when I talk about truck company operations, I talk about suburban truck company skills. It is literally, that is what I'm talking about. Suburban truck company skills. I am not teaching a tactics class. I'm teaching a skills class. How to throw ladders, how to force doors, how to take how to climb a ladder with tools, et cetera, et cetera. You know, like search and rescue. How to bring a person down a 20 a ground ladder. You know, like a live person. I'm not talking about a fucking mannequin and all that shit. So I teach skills. I don't teach tactics. There's a lot of better men in my opinion to teach tactics than me. I teach skills. Also, another thing is, I said it at the beginning of that phrase, suburban truck tactics. The day I start teaching you how to fucking, you know, attack, you know, brownstones and you know, take roofs and take bulkhead doors and all that shit, is the day you should look me up on the internet and be like, you work for where? And then fucking walk out of my class and be like, this guy's full of shit. You know, like, and we got a lot of guys across the country that hover on that line of like, man, why are you teaching this? Like, damn, dude, you don't necessarily go into basements, or you don't go up and down, and you don't, you know, that type of stuff. So it's kind of weird to me, like guys teaching stuff that is out of their lane. You know, but that's what I'm proud of. I've earned a seat at the table where I'm at, in the realm of like, just whenever I travel or whatever, because of staying true to myself and staying true to where I work. My bread and butter is suburban to rural environments. I fight single story block construction homes, double wide mobile homes. I fight single wide mobile homes. I can't tell you how to fucking, I could, obviously I know how to catch standpipes and all that stuff. We have hotels in my purse do, I get it. But for the sake of this conversation, I'm not going to teach you a fucking class, or I'm not going to tell you how to catch a standpipe and standpipe evolutions, but I can tell you how to stretch down a you know, 150 to 200 foot driveway, and how to extend the line, and how we use the FDNY pack or the Gussin pack to extend the line, a trunk line into a long driveway. You know, so it's like, I stay in my lane. I enjoy staying in my lane. I want to perfect the craft, which is an ever impossible task. I want to perfect the craft of staying in my lane, And I'm proud of being able to sit at the table, not pretending to be something I ain't.
That's awesome. And I like that you hit on the suburban and the rural aspect of it, because
Yep.
Jeremy and I have this conversation where we're like you hear all the big names, but like there's people out there who, like, that is America.
Absolutely.
Like America is not a brownstone. It is not an old wall tenement, and it's not a 100-story high rise. It is, like when you say it's a single and double wide trailer, or a block construction, or a single family home, like that is what the
Absolutely.
most of us have to go to. So I dig it. Sean, what about you? Like what's been that moment where you're just like, yeah, I didn't think this would happen? And do not say be on National Fire Radio, or I'll get on a plane in Michigan and come punch you. No.
No, I mean, I echo a lot of what Pablo said. There's a lot of people out there that want to do this stuff or whatever, for the attention, for whatever stigma comes with that, like almost like a fire service celebrity, which I'll never understand that. I don't. We're all people, right? We all go to fires. We all put our pants on the same way. We're firefighters at the end of the day. Just for whatever reason, the message you have has caught on, and people like to hear it. So I think the most proud moment, like Pablo said, is just being yourself and being real, and not trying to pretend. But here's the moment for me. It was actually at the lake, and Pablo was there to witness this. Captain Mike Dugan, retired FDNY, he's given the keynote, right? And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So we talked to him here and there, and I had just submitted a article to Fire Engineering. I was in the process of getting published and everything, and I said, hey, while I have you here, I'd like you to read it, and let me know your honest thoughts. And Pablo and I are sitting at the table having breakfast, and here comes Captain Dugan. He sits down, and the waitress is like, what can I get you? And he goes, nothing, I'm just having some coffee with some friends, and he sat down, he looked at me, he goes, I read your article last night. I think it's really, really great. Like, keep doing good work, kid. And I just remember, like, man, early in the fire service, I'm reading this guy's stuff, and like, I would just like, here's one of the guys that I looked up to in the fire service, who I consider, a positive influence, who has worked for the largest fire department, in the world. And he's sharing coffee with me. He liked my article, which was all organic, and it was just a really, really cool moment. Like, I'll remember that. Like, I told Pablo afterwards, I'm like, that is fucking crazy. Like, I would never thought in my wildest dreams I'd be sitting here having coffee with Captain Mike Dugan, let alone him giving me kudos for an article. And it's funny because he has since now become a kind of like a friend to me, as well as a mentor. And I've been on their podcast a couple of times just talking, and man, the wealth of knowledge that he has, I mean, that's that's something that you can't replicate. I mean, that is true experience, true knowledge. And just to be sitting at the table with a fire service legend, in my opinion, like that, having a normal conversation, and realizing like, hey, okay, I'm on the right path here, love it, hate it, whatever. I'm having this opportunity in my career to probably sit and talk to people that I never would be able to elsewise, and it's just a normal conversation, right? There's no kiss assing going on or any of that stuff. It's just two firefighters just sitting and talking like normal people. And you look back at all those experiences, when you travel the country and you meet all these people, and you're just like, man, I'm incredibly fortunate to be in the spot that I'm in, to just have them at my disposal, pick their brains, and just, learn from them too, in this very private setting, that anywhere else, they'd have 50, 60, 70 people, waiting in line, like, hey, I gotta ask this guy a question, and it was just a really, really cool experience. And I'll always remember that one, probably, gosh, forever, really. It just, I talked to my daughters the other day. We were watching this like 9/11 special, and I was like, hey, you see that guy? Daddy knows that guy, like, and I'm telling them the story, and they're like, whoa, that's so cool. So to even see my daughters like be able to be a part of that and say, yeah, like, this is what he told me, and blah, 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 like, you're just passing that on, and that's just irreplaceable.
That's cool. I think there's, Jeremy and I had a conversation the other day. We had to discuss some stuff, and I said to him, I said, listen, man, like the whole thing with National Fire Radio, I have a tremendous amount of gratitude towards this. Like, I know people that I have no business knowing. I mean, I know you guys, Melissa puts up with me because I'm, her kid's lieutenant, but like, I mean, like, it's one of these things where, like, and actually that day, it's funny you bring up, Captain Dugan, because I said that, it's like, Jeremy, like, never in the world did I think I'd have that guy's number. And I said, I'm going to leave this meeting today and I'm going to call him and wish him a happy birthday because I've gotten to know him.
Right.
And that's like, and it's nuts. So like, it's a lot of gratitude. Like that's, of really what you guys have accomplished, and FYI, this is not a paid advertisement, but for those of you who are interested in attending Revolutionary Fire Tactics at the Lake, like this, the conference Sean and Pablo are referring to here, you do have that personal skills to be able to talk to the instructors one-on-one without that line of 100 people trying to be like, oh, hey man, what Halligan bar do you like to use? Like, pretty cool.
Can I get your picture, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So Melissa, what do you I feel like what do you got?
I'm just listening to the two of you, and I am so extremely impressed with your enthusiasm, your passion for what you bring to the fire service, and that you're both change agents. You saw a need and you went forward with it, and I truly am humbled to be sitting here listening to the both of you, and you're filling me with enthusiasm. And you're amazing. The both of you are what you're accomplishing. The culture in the firehouse is huge. And like Pablo, like you said, the pictures on the wall. A fellow commissioner and I just got done. We built a new classroom for our members. And that is the one thing we're getting ready this week. I took photos and we had them all blown up and put into frames, because when they come in, that's something when they sit down at the table and they're eating, they're looking up at the wall and they're seeing all these pictures, right? And then you're going to ask, yeah, what was that fire? Mm-hmm. What happened there? What tactics did you use at that fire? Well, the roof, the fire's going over there. How did you handle that? Who came in, which mutual aid companies came to that fire? And they talk. And so, a little different than the career where I have the volunteers. I have the guys. We do one Friday a month where we do the oldies come in and we feed them lunch. And the stories they tell are just, oh, it's incredible. It really is. Because you're talking, I have some guys with 70 years of active service at this point. They've been in there forever, 60, 70 years, and they sit there and they just love to talk about it back in the day. Right?
It sets the tone. Now you don't have to think of, now they don't have to say back in the day, they can just look at the walls. It sets the tones. And I love analogies. I speak analogies for days, but like, there's no difference in a firehouse wall that is filled with pictures and stuff like that. Then like, you showing up to PT, you show up, Melissa, you get hired in X fire department, you show up to PT the first day. The first day, the PT instructor that is there is, let's just say, someone that physically doesn't look the part of a PT instructor. You're going to be like, all right, whatever, it is what you'll literally be like, whatever.
Exactly. Why should I do it if you're not going to do it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and
we're going to go for a mile run. Okay, we'll be right back after a mile, but then
I'll see you in 45 minutes.
Exactly. But then, first day, first day shenanigans is over, and then, hey class, like, this is so-and-so training instructor, he's gonna be leading your PT, and the dude looks like, fucking David Goggins or Jocko or some shit. The class shits their pants where they're standing. They're like, oh fuck, this is gonna be the worst 2 hours of my life. Oh my god. It sets the tone. So it's the same thing. Somebody walks into an office building and they're like, oh, okay, whatever, it's an office building. Someone walks into a firehouse and it sets the tone. You're like, right off the bat, you're like, I gotta go check off the rig, like, in a good way, because we're gonna catch a fire any minute now. It just sets the tone. Yeah.
Sets the tone. I'm getting ready to in 3 weeks, when we have a new shift of officers that are coming in, I'm setting up a American flag backdrop, and I'm going to be doing photographs of all the officers, and we're going to hang them up this year. This is the first time we've ever done that.
That's awesome.
All the way down. I have the chiefs up, but I don't have everybody else up. And I said, let's just do it this year. Let's make space, put them up there.
That's
Yeah, no,
called
that's-
building your own culture.
Yeah,
That's
I love that because I'll tell you personal experience. When I got hired with my fire department now, I went in and after my interview, I just kind of walked around the firehouse, and it's the only firehouse in our city that still has a pole, which is awesome, right? And yes, it works because I use it all the time. I drive people crazy. If I'm upstairs, I gotta go downstairs. I'll take the pole, But
So great. I love taking pictures of those firehouses with the poles. I'm like, oh, you got a working pole.
yeah, well, I mean, there's so much like history there, right?
There's
Like
so much history, right?
it's insane. And when you walk into the front like area of our firehouse, there's pictures. Our fire department was established in like the 1860s, towards the tail end of like the Civil War, right? And so it's been around a while, and you've got pictures all the way through like all of these years, just all over the firehouse, pictures of like old fires that like they've been on, and stuff. There's just so much history that was captured. And people are like, Sean, why don't you like to go down to, Station 2? I'm like, it's not that I don't like to go down there. I love being here because this is a fucking firehouse. Like there's so much cool shit here, right? And that's the one that all the kids come into and they want the tour and all that stuff. And it makes you very, very proud to be there, So kudos to you for starting that tradition, that people can walk in and, as that goes on, they're going to look back at that and be like, oh, you remember this year? That was so awesome. Like all this stuff happened and this guy's not here anymore, but we hired this dude. And there's just all these stories, right? It's truly an amazing thing. And it's something so small, that small thing right there, like triggers all of it, and man, you just cannot, I don't care. There's no amount of money. There's no benefit. There's nothing that replaces that feeling of attachment that you have to that.
I agree.
I think it's funny, like when you said that you worked in the firehouse with a pole, one of the things I always think about is like in Hyattsville, the poles that are there, like I think how many other members have slid down this thing going to a fire, how many people, and like Hyattsville's, we have a line of duty like Alan Sunday, like back in the 80s, that guy didn't come back and he took that pole, that morning, like so it's those kind of things just run through my head. And then like we go back to that conversation about the sterile firehouse, and I feel for those guys so bad because I think it was in Gareth Juvie is this guy. He's been following us since we started. Shout out to Gareth. And when we started talking about culture, he was in a sterile fire department. Like you legit think, and it's no disrespect to them, they grew so fast that they just looked at an Insta manual and they're like, all right, this is how we have to do it. So here you go. And they started like really building their culture up, but it was these small things that started, and it, all of a sudden it grew into this giant snowball going down the mountain, and it couldn't be stopped. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff there, Melissa. Send some pictures downrange. I want to see what you have in plan. What you have in store. Excuse me.
Got thousands and thousands of photos.
Awesome.
It's nice. I'm allowed to go. I have permission from all the chiefs in the county to go to any structure fire, which is great. But it also gives me a very interesting and distinct point of view of looking at the training situation that occurs in different districts, right? So when you were saying that, I was like, yes, you can tell who trains and who doesn't. And in those companies, I have to be very discreet as to whose photos I can put up on social media. I can't. So,
well, I think
we're very diligent about that. So.
I love that you bring that point up, because like I don't think that we really, as a service, realize the impact that has, right? Like you're there taking pictures, and yeah, you have some attachment to the fire department, but let's say you didn't. I don't care if you know what firefighters do or what they don't do. You will always pick out the people who don't know their job, right? You're always that's going to be evident. And
what are these guys doing?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you said, like
be there with jeans. Yeah. Oh, you're doing the fire hose with active flames with no gloves. In your jeans, right?
That's exactly. And it's like, hey, why didn't you put those pictures up? And you're like, how do I say this? Well, it's kind of fucking embarrassing.
I don't want OSHA to come doctor that you would pass, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I tell everybody that, like, hey, when somebody's there taking a picture of you or they're taking a video, like, and you see it, are you going to be proud of that? Or are you going to wish that thing goes
Right.
away? Because now
Right.
there's proof that this happens. Like, you can deny all you want, but once that video or that picture surfaces, game over, right? So, hey, that's real. That's reality.
You know what that exposes, and it's a fucking just leads us into a wormhole of shit that Sean and I talk about all the time. That exposes is that there is, and so for everybody out there, once again, I'll piss off some people. There's different levels of talent to this shit. No matter what you do in life, there's different levels of talent. It doesn't matter. Literally from a McDonald's employee, burger flipper, to all the way to a fucking astronaut. There's to a doctor. I'm sure there's doctors that suck. I'm sure if you go sit, like I always joke around with the astronaut thing. I'm sure if you go sit at fucking NASA Space Kennedy here in Florida and go shoot the shit with a couple astronauts, one of them's gonna look at you and be like, "Hey, that dude Rob? That you're gonna go to space with that guy? That guy's an idiot." Like there's different
Legit.
levels. Yeah, there's different levels of talent to everything that we do, and for whatever reason in the fire service, we wanna blanket it that we're all the same because we went to fire academy. We got out of orientation together and we were the same fucking t-shirt and all that shit. The state of Florida says that you gotta have a driver's license, a valid driver's license to get hired in the state of Florida. During EVOC day, in the state of Florida, since you have a state of valid driver's license per the state of Florida, that means that we basically are equal, right? We drive the same because we both have a valid driver's license. During EVOC day, that is gonna tell you how much of a fucking lie that is. Because someone's going to get in a truck and run over like 6 or 7 cones while some other dude is going to get in a truck, whether it be a freaking tiller, whether it be a platform, whether it be an ambulance, and they're just going to wheel that thing like if it was a Honda Civic. There are different levels of talent to throwing ladders, to running an EMS call, to whatever the hell it is. There's different levels of talent to what we do. And for whatever reason, we want to have a blanket statement that everybody's the same, and pictures and videos fucking proves otherwise.
Amen. I love it. That's my favorite conversation we have ever, because it's so true.
It's so true. I could go to one of these conferences, the FDIC conference, and just do a slideshow of what not to do on a fire scene.
Well, that was going to be my suggestion. Was going to be like, Melissa, you should really hook up with Sean and Pablo with some photos, and they can like really be like, all right, so are we building culture here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Listen, guys, I've got thousands.
Perfect. Yeah, good. Then I'm gonna need your email, and we're gonna get this done.
So let's talk a little bit about build your culture and the classes that you guys have, because like I remember the one when I talked to Sean about this, I was like, oh yeah, like the build your culture is like, hey, we do other classes, and I'm like, yes, I know. I was like, I don't know them right off the top of my head, but like there's other stuff that you guys are doing, like your searchable versus survivable, right?
Yep.
And what else? Like start.
Oh man. Well, we have a new one that we're doing now. Kind of came about from the last article that we had published in Firehouse about SCB Confidence. So we're doing we have an air class or air pack class on, just pretty much like, hey, this is your lifeline, right? Like you need to know this shit and how to breathe and do all these things. And one of the things that we found is in Fire Academy, you do a lot of drills, right? Whether it be bunker gear drills or air pack drills or whatever. And then once you get out of that, like the time requirements kind of disappear, especially on the air pack side of things. People turn it on, they hear all the bells and whistles, they bleed out the air, they turn it off and they call it good, but it's not really good, So we do a class on that. We do mentoring, mindset type class. Pablo's got his, 4 days, Pablo? 4-day truck company class that you do?
I actually have a truck company class, a truck company skills class that we put on too, or that I put on,
Yeah, so we do that. We've recently partnered with a couple other people, Mitch from Fire Mall Tools and stuff. So he now offers his tool science class through us, which is pretty much like it's a forcible entry class, but before we start doing forceful entry, like you're going to get the premise of like where all of our tools came from and why they're designed the way they are and how they truly work and things like that. So we're always adding stuff to it. But the two biggest ones that we do, it seems to be, you know, the ones that are wanted the most is the culture class and the search class.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add on that, you know, like just and Sean hit it earlier at the beginning of this. He touched about like that we do our own things. We always keep the build your culture in the middle because it's what you know, we started together. It's our baby. Literally, it's just kind of like something that has grown. But you know, Sean, I know that Sean does a lot of classes with Task Force One. That's a hell of a company out there, you know, and you know, so you'll see his name out there a lot with a lot of online classes or a lot of VES classes and stuff like that. I know he does a lot of work with them. I do a lot of work with National Rescue Consultants down here in the state of Florida, and a lot of the truck company operations class that I put on down here. It's through the National Rescue Consultants, but at the end of the day, you know, it's still Pablo from Build Your Culture. Still, you know, when Sean teaches, you know, for Task Force One, it's still Sean from Build Your Culture. You know, it's I know I can speak for him on this one because we've talked about this. We're both incredibly humbled that two very reputable companies that are highly respected, that have a cadre of people that are a who's who of the fire service, has allowed us to come in and share our passions. You know, Sean specifically out there in the Midwest, and me down here in the state of Florida. So we're all over the place, but in a good way. I mean that in a very good way. We're all over the place with different classes that you might see Sean dropping in, whether it be a business culture class or a task force class, or myself with NRC and or Build Your Culture. But humbled beyond belief by the opportunities that are allowed to us by guys that fuck, dude, I still to this day think that are much better than I am anyway. So
100%. That's awesome. I wanted to come back to this SCBA Confidence class because
Yeah, I'm with you. I wrote that down. Yep.
so like one of the and I don't know where Melissa's coming from on this one, but like my angle is like SCBA Confidence to me was it was firefighter survival as a volunteer, and then in the academy it was let me beat the piss out of you in a mass confidence class. Right. Or a course rather, not a class, a mass confidence course. And like we didn't get it. I mean, at the time I thought it was bad. In hindsight, some of the things that have happened in the past, it was actually very mild, but like nobody actually taught me anything. Like there were lessons I learned, but they weren't lessons that I learned because somebody said like, all right, so on this last evolution, this is what happened. It was you morons keep running out of air and you're going to die in real life. Right. And Mo Davis and I were talking about this at the Joey D Memorial Training Foundation training days in Long Island. And Mo was like, you know, I've never wanted to, in a fire and a collapse, and I've had a couple of things happen to me, want to go into a smaller space. I was always like, hey, I want to go into a bigger space. Like this building's on fire. Like this bigger space seems to be my friend. I like that.
Right.
So like my question is like, what, without giving up all the, you know, the IP on the class, like what are you building on that? Because I think SCBA Confidence is awesome and competence, but I don't ever see anybody fucking teaching it.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it's funny. Like a lot of the stuff born out of frustration, right? We said that earlier, and that's kind of where this came in. Is like, man, like Pablo's witnessed this. One of my things that I've done since day one is I put my air mask on, turn my bottle on, let it go through its check, turn it off, and I breathe that down, right? And I'll let that mask suck to my face, and I'll see how many breaths I can get like that, because instinctively we want to pull it off, right? And I've taken a lot of classes, much like you, that they just didn't really do much. Like they weren't teaching me how to survive, right? It was like, oh, don't worry, your low air alarm's off, keep going, you know, just keep going. It's like, hey, how about teaching me how to work better and longer on my cylinder before this alarm goes off, so I don't find myself in a bad spot, right? And then on the other side, it's like, all right, lay down, you're done. I'm like, wait a minute, am I in danger? Right? Like, I'm not in a good spot, but you're practically telling me just to stay put. All right, so shouldn't I be like working on how to like self-rescue or like conserve air or things like this? Like, aren't those important things? Like, what are those techniques that I need to know? And skip breathing was the biggest one that I always hated, because everyone's like, oh, well, if you skip breathe, I'm like, skip breathe does nothing for you. All it does is make your heart rate increase, which makes you breathe faster, right? Because you're holding your damn breath. So like if the scuba
your cardiac output, and you're going to have all other issues too. So
right. Exactly. And like the scuba diving community understands this, but we as firefighters who also use breathing apparatus do not. Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. So in the class, pretty much what we do is we're going to start from square one. Like, hey, what do you know about your pack? Show me a good checkout. Like, show me how to inspect it. Like, everything's good. Like, how do you inspect your mask and make sure that's good? Like, because from the outside, everything might look okay, but you still have to inspect your lens and make sure that that's intact, and, all of that. Then we're going to go through like, hey, do you truly know like what your air readings are? Like when your pack chirps to you and does all these, do you know how much time you have? Like all these things. And we'll show you some breathing techniques to increase your cylinder. And one of the ones that we use is the same thing that martial arts uses, which is that nice, like in through your mouth, hum out breathing, it works for martial arts. In lots of athletes who do long distance running and stuff like that, they actually breathe through their nose, right? Because it actually decreases your heart rate. So just trying to teach you how like you can still work really hard and do things and maintain your heart rate at a low area while conserving air. And then we'll do a couple drills, just for familiarity reasons, like, hey, hot bottle swap, you like put your pack together, like what happens if you have a failure of your regulator? How are you going to fix that? Like all of these things that literally mean life to death for somebody, we're going to put into practice over the course of 4 hours, so that hopefully when they get done with that, they can be like, man, there's a lot that I didn't know about this air pack. And there's a lot that I was doing, I don't want to say wrong, but maybe there's stuff that I could be doing better, right? Everybody's frame is different. A larger frame person versus smaller frame person, they're going to be different. They're going to use different types of air consumption. So pretty much like bringing it all in and understanding how your body is going to react to the air supply that you have. How can you better conserve that? And then how can you go about when something goes wrong, making sure that you fix it appropriately instead of just sitting there waiting for somebody to come rescue you.
Come get you.
Right.
You brought up so much everything that I've sat and thought on these scenes when I look at them, and I see the firefighters coming up. First, you have to backtrack. I think even one more step further is their physical shape that they're in.
Right. Oh yeah.
So
That's huge.
That's huge. If they're not physically fit, they're sucking down an air pack in 10 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, easy. Sucking it down, right? Mm-hmm. So it's, and I'm like, then they come out, they're like, Mel, I can't believe it went through this pack already. And I'm like, yeah, right. Okay. I know I went through it already.
You're like, oh, I'm so shocked too.
Right.
How'd that ever happen?
So actually, that's ironic. All of this comes up. So last week, I don't know if you guys follow my social media or not. I just got back from Broward County down in Pembroke Pines Fire Department to be exact, Broward County, with National Rescue Consultants down there, doing a firefighter survival class, advanced rescue and firefighter survival through NRC for the department. That is a 4-day class in which we encompass everything from, and it's stuff, literally the stuff that Sean was bringing up, literally encompass everything from how to deal with maydays and writ situations. If you guys have ever do a little bit of Google search or whatever and search Captain Rob Ramirez from Coconut Creek Fire, one of the better classes as far as the Mayday mindset you're ever going to come across. The man breaks down, and this is a personal, by the way, this is a personal friend of Sean and ours, and excuse me, Sean and mine, and we've been privileged and blessed to be able to do work with him. But like, talk about his particular class, the Mayday mindset. He starts off the week with that, and he goes over all kinds of data-driven scenarios, literally, like not fake numbers or not opinions or nothing, just straight up facts from the Mayday projects and all that type of stuff. He goes over what happens with heart rates when you get to a rate and you start getting into condition black, condition red, condition, we try to operate in condition gray and all that type of stuff. He starts going over what happens when people try to rip off their gear, the training scars that happens when when we do that all the time and we set ourselves up for failure. He literally he literally talks about in the class about the algorithm, as to like, you have to have a personal algorithm of how far you're going to go up to, and including like, all right, well, I'm going to die next. My algorithm next is literally like death. I've hit every step like that I've hit. What's next? Like, fuck, I got to do something, because the next step is going to be fucking death. It's an incredible day one kickoff, and then after that we go into literally not scenarios, excuse me, but skill-based stuff. Like just what Sean was talking about there. We'll literally go into skill-based stuff, how to take your air pack on and off, how to crawl through confined spaces, how to get through all that type of stuff. Then you literally will build on that. We'll go on into RIT situations, like how to properly conduct a RIT, because nobody across the fucking nation conducts a RIT properly. It's fucking ridiculous the way we conduct RIT. We get two guys to stand outside the fucking yard shepherds and pretend like that's going to actually do some work, when in reality numbers suggesting that 10 to 15 guys are going to be needed to actually run a RIT operation. So we go for RIT operations. Well, within RIT operations, what do we have to do? We have to understand how to work our low pressure and our high pressure emergencies, how to work your RIT bag. So we literally will break that shit down, literally, like to a science of how to break it down. One of the best RIT classes in the country, and I hate to even bypass her right now, is a guy by the name of Basil Abraham down here in the state, from me down in the city of Orlando. That guy's one bad day class. I've been privileged enough to be able to hop into his class and assist him in not only take it, but assist him in it. What a great class. And the same thing, we talk about, and I just go back to these names because these are some of the best instructors in the country. I always want people to know them, and a lot of the stuff comes from them too, but I'm privileged enough to work with them. But in the class, we talk about RIT operations and how to, and literally everything, breaking down what tools to carry, how to actually soften a building, because part of RIT operations is softening a building, truck work, everything from throwing ladders to basic size ups to forcing doors, et cetera. So day two, we start going over truck company operations, because that's part of RIT. So we literally go over all of that. It's an impromptu truck class, mini truck class that includes search and rescue, not only search for your downed fireman, but search for your victim, in which we encompass then build your culture's search techniques, in which we bring in the data driven stuff that Sean has accumulated through his class, and then we put that in there, and then we go into drags and how to drag people out, both firemen and civilians. Then literally third day we start doing more scenario stuff. We start encompassing Nance drills, Denver drills, live action. Everything's gonna be live with live people, no dummies. An actual command system, no bullshit fucking trying to go over a radio and be like, oh, no, like you're gonna have to talk to a radio, which one of the instructors or someone will be outside on the radio, and you are literally talking to a radio, and then radio is coming back. So you start building that actual muscle memory of what it's like to talk on a radio, and not just random to be like, oh, I have to do it. No, we actually build that action. And then in any RIT and Mayday class, I think it's huge to encompass, just to hit on what you just said, Rob, about like, oh, I'm trying to get into a bigger space and stuff like that. I agree with you 100%. Just to throw a little caveat in there, we will throw scenarios out there at people where they're unrealistic as fuck. Let me say that again, unrealistic as fuck.
Yeah.
But we say that to them, though. We legitimately say that, look, this is going to be a realistic scenario, and this is, you know, like, this is a mayday that can occur. Now, having said that, we'll do another scenario. Let's say on the fourth day, or on the third day, whatever day we decide, we'll do a scenario in which we'll go up to the maze and give them a fucking scenario that is not realistic. But you have to preface it with saying this to the student: we can't replicate fire. We can't replicate you thinking you're going to die. That is, you can't replicate that. But we could replicate stress-induced tachycardia. When we replicate stress-induced tachycardia, that'll be the closest thing to that under stress load of being under fire or thinking that you're going to die as we're going to get in the natural world, without actually fucking lighting the building on fire and saying you're fucking dying. So when we do a maze that literally has no rhyme or reason to it, as long as you preface it to the student saying, listen, this is going to be how well you keep your frustrations under control. Every Mayday across the country, from fucking training to actual Maydays, the one thing that has in common is communications goes to shit. So during frustrations, communication goes to shit. So when we do those types of scenarios in which, like, listen, this is unrealistic, you're going to go from a tight space to a tighter space, this and that, as long as you preface it to the student, be like, listen, we've done 3 days of real world stuff. Today is the last day. We're going to do some, or whether it be the first day, it doesn't matter. We're going to do some frustration training. We're going to try to get that tachycardia induced heart rate up. We're going to see how well you can work with your partners under a stressful condition. We're going to throw some music on in the background, some Maydays from YouTube in the background. We're going to disorient you from we're going to take your vision away, and we're going to muffle your audio. So you're going to get down to your senses of just like trying to really hone your senses. That really fucks people up. So it trains them on just how well you can control your frustrations throughout that evolution. So it's a you know, I know Sean and I are on the same page with this when it comes to the particular the SCBA class, which is going to be basically a small condensed, and I say small condensed, watered down, because we literally just don't have the days. A fire conference is literally 1 day. So you know, like, well, 3 days, but you're going to have, you know, 1 day of class. So you have a more condensed version of what I just came back with the National Rescue Consultants guys, of a 4-day burner. And that is a shameless plug if anybody wants it. NRC Travels.
When you're talking about RIT stuff too, like I lived in the rapid intervention team, or as we say in the Northeast, because we're different from everybody else in the country, our fast teams. But like, I lived in this, like, I called it the fast false reality, that I was doing the right thing. Like you said, like, I was a yard shepherd. I was out there, like, we weren't even throwing ladders. But we were there, we were checking a box. Like, fast team's here, cool, we can proceed. And I took RIT under fire at Firehouse Expo in 2016, I think, 2016, 2017, when I got hired. And I remember they were like, hey, we're going to show you how to do this. And then we're going to light that building on fire, and you're going to do it under live fire conditions. And being from New York, I was like, well, you can't do that. Like, that's against the law. And they're like, you're in Tennessee, so fucking figure out yourself. And I was like, all right. And I remember, like, there was a couple groups who were like, hey, we normally do this. And they were like, whatever these techniques that they learned off of YouTube. And the instructors were like, later on this afternoon, we're going to light that building on fire. And when the heat is on you, I want to see if you have the digital dexterity to actually complete that task. Absolutely. Because doing it out here in the parking lot looks really good.
That's a whole different ballgame.
Just wait.
And a whole different ballgame. Yep.
And like, I was like, wow, like, this is crazy. So like, you know, the first couple evolutions, like, it was out, like, and I remember I was like, wow, this building's warm. Like, all right, like they've got it going. And there was one point where we were doing something. I think we were We took a down firefighter up the stairs, across an apartment. They blew a hole through an apartment wall. So we went through that and then down the stairs and out. And I remember that, like, the heat was literally like, I could feel that, like, you know how you get that blanket, like it comes on your shoulders and it starts coming down your arms. And I was like, I started to lose just the grip on the air pack. You know, like I was having a hard time doing this. And I remember I was like it, within seconds, this conversation in my mind happened. You're losing your digital dexterity and your gross motor skills. Stop being a bitch and calm down. Like, look at the air pack, grab the air pack. Now pull the firefighter. And like at the end of it, I was like, so I went to one of the instructors. I was like, hey, them guys from the left coast, how they make out with that little thing they were gonna do? He was like, it didn't work at all. So
no, and it's funny because Sean, please jump into this right now. One of the things that that we have in common, and this class that literally we just did to any class that Sean and I do, any class that he does across with task force, does and that. This talk about a shirt, a slogan for a shirt. Gimmicks don't live here. I've literally had people tell me, hey, you know, you're gonna tie a hasty harness, or you're gonna do a Swiss seat, or you're gonna do a 2-to-1, and I'm like, you're a fucking structure fire, bro. That shit don't. I mean, fuck out of here. No, like you have to, the equipment you got on. I'm gonna steal this completely from Rob Ramirez. The oven mitts you have on, the fucking the conditions themselves that are probably moderate at best. You know, if it's a real working fire, you know, moderate at best with visibility and stuff like that. It's like, no, like, we enjoy teaching and regurgitating real world experiences and dirty drags. Get down. How do you manipulate your body and the victim's body, whether it be a civilian or a fireman? How do you manipulate their body to be able to fit your needs at that moment, which is my needs is to get the fuck out of that particular area, and whether to get outside the building or to go to a room to isolate myself. We talk about the tactics of isolation, and we talk about the tactics of body manipulation. And it is very rare for me to talk, you know, during, and same thing with Sean. I'll let him fucking get in here because I know he's sitting there chomping at the bit, because this is a passionate discussion for us. It is very rare when I bring out a fucking a piece of webbing to tie and be like, yo, this is what, are you fucking kidding me, bro? Like, yeah, dude, like, structure fires are no joke, man. Like, you're actually in one. No, you need to know how to manipulate someone's body. You need to know how to understand your gear. You need to understand how to manipulate your body onto someone else's body. Basic jiu-jitsu 101 right there. I mean, this is straight up, like, gimmicks won't live here, brother. So I like that you said that.
Yeah, no, I'll piggyback on that, because the thing is, like, you go to these training events and everyone's got their idea of what works and what doesn't, right? And you'll quickly find out that, like, in maybe like a Connex box, you know, or the apparatus bay, that sounds like a great idea, and it probably works very well.
Training center.
Yeah, the training environment. However, like, the fire ground, make no mistake about it, that's the greatest equalizer. Like, you're going to find out what works and what doesn't pretty fucking quick, you know? And, you know, we've always tried to tell our students that, like, listen, I'm not going to teach you all these cool little tricks, because reality is when you're under fire and you're just trying to go and get the hell out of there, you might get a girth hitch at best using webbing, right? And that's providing that you're able to pull that person by yourself with that, right? So you'll see these people, like, they always have like these cool carabiners and all these awesome setups, and I don't want to take anything away from them. Like, kudos to you for ingenuity and things like that, but, like, let's focus on the objective. The objective is get in there, get your assignment, and get the fuck out, right? Find them the fastest you can, get them out the fastest you can, period. And there's data to support that. Like, our searches, whether it be for a victim or a firefighter, they have to be fast. And so does our removals, period, right? So you can accomplish a lot with basic mechanical skills, and you can't replace the way that a true human body moves, right? So we don't use hose dummies or any of that stuff. We're going to use real people, you know, and people look at us like we're crazy. Like how can you guys do that? Well, it's important. It's important that you know what works and what doesn't, trying this on a real person in real time, right? So we show them all kinds of drags and maneuvers and things like that, not just for civilians, but for firefighters. It's like, hey man, the best thing you have to your advantage on a firefighter is their damn air pack, right? There's all kinds of places to grab. So how do you make that work for you, right? And understanding like when to call for help early. And the thing is, like, just like anything else, like, oh, well, we're going to package them and we're going to wait. Like, hey man, sometimes that's time wasted. Package them the way you need to move, but you need to keep moving. And like Rob, you brought up like fast. Well, there's this awesome thing called a fast board, which you can put a down fireman on and
100%.
30 seconds, right? Like, boom, let's go. And you know, that's really what you got to get to. Like, I understand that like not everybody's going to have that piece of equipment, but you should still have the knowledge of how to do that. Right.
You know, it's funny you mention that, because we have the fast board, and like obviously we've covered it with National Fire Radio. We spoke with Eric Allen, but how this has not become more of a mainstream thing in fire departments like thermal imagers have.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll leave it at that. Just, but like, it is that good of a device. Like,
dude,
I thought they were at Paris Island today. I think I saw it on Facebook that they were at Paris Island today with the Marine, I believe.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but you know, like that's like I talk to Eric all the time. Him and I are teaming up to do a couple classes here real soon, and you know, we're working on another SCBA class together. You know, which I think is going to be awesome. But besides the point, when we have our conversations, it's exactly what we talk about. Like, hey, I don't really care what you do, just get them the hell out and get them out quick, right? Yeah. And when you start looking at like all the gimmicks and tricks that are out there, you're just like, how does anybody buy into this? How do you think it's a great idea to sit there when you can't see and your heart rate's elevated and all these things? Like, if anybody took the time to read the Project Mayday studies, which was like over 6,000 Maydays, they would see that a very small percentage of time, which is like 6.6% or something like that, that when there's a Mayday, that the RIT team is actually the one activated that has to go get that person. Now, that's not to take anything away from them. Like, that is a legit RIT response, like, or a fast team response right there, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to be quick and fast and get out. But the rest of the time, outside of that, self-rescue, rescue by another crew, you know, things like that. So realistically, outside of our basic firefighting, like our search and rescue, our hose management and, you know, fire, you know, tactics and things like that, we really, really need to be self-proficient at firefighter rescue. We have to, right? I mean, that's non-negotiable.
Well, I don't want to stop our conversation, but we've been going at it for about like an hour and 20 minutes. So like, and it just seems like we just started about 5 minutes ago. Really quick, like, so where can everybody find you guys?
Go ahead, Pablo.
Well, I'm on Facebook. Me personally, I'm on Facebook. I share with my wife. Don't nobody make fun of me out there. Actually, go ahead, make fun of me. I'll give you a couple seconds.
Make fun of them.
I'll give you 5 seconds. All right, now that you guys are done with it, just Pablo Vanessa Jenner is my Facebook. Jenner spelled Gener, and just hit me up at any time. Aside from that, our Instagram is Build Your Culture. Our Facebook is obviously Build Your Culture. You can hit me up also through the NRC website, so or Facebook pages, National Rescue Consultants. So I got plenty of places to hit me up. You know, NRC websites, Build Your Culture Facebook, Build Your Culture Instagram, or my own personal one, Pablo Vanessa Jenner on Facebook.
Duffy?
Yeah, for me, my personal email, duffy558@gmail.com. You can get me there, and you know, same thing. Build Your Culture page, on my personal Facebook page, anything like that. So I used to give out my number. I don't anymore because that got a little crazy. So if you need something and you want,
can't get rid of me. So there's a reason why.
Hey, that's all right. No. If you need something, like you want to actually talk to me, just message me or email me. I'll give you my phone number and we'll have a chat and whatever. But yeah, those are the easiest ways to find me. I'm usually on the go, so all that stuff goes to my phone, so I get it pretty quick.
And do you guys have, like, whether it be with National Rescue Consultants or Task Force One, do you guys have any classes, or Build Your Culture? Do you guys have any classes coming up? Anything you want to plug?
Oh man, there's so many. I'll let Pablo plug what he's got first, because mine goes all the way to October of next year. So
Yeah.
Yeah, to Duffy, you're not giving us sponsorship. No, I'm just kidding.
No,
Bring it on.
we have NRC's got a VES class coming up in Polk County, but that's an in-house thing with Polk out there. I know we got the Florida just passed. I got my own training divisions coming up here like the next couple months. I'm literally booked in my own training for new hires literally for the next 2 months, and then after that I'm heading up with Sean. Where do you want to go, to Missouri? I think it was.
yeah, we'll go somewhere in Missouri to do a culture class.
Funny thing is though, I won't even lie on this one, man. I'm pretty blessed where the guys just kind of like let me, I don't want to say tag along, but they let me tag along. So it's like Sean literally books stuff and he'll be like, hey bro, you want to go? And I'm like, fuck yeah, or I can't. So as far as like the next Build Your Culture classes coming up, Sean's gonna be the next one, the best one to tell us. I know that we're booked all the way down to the end of the year. I know that much. And as far as National Rescue Consultants, like really on a serious note, as far as NRC is concerned, if anybody wants any types of National Rescue Consultants classes, go to the NRC website, and legitimately they have all kinds of classes booked throughout the entire year, from rope rescue to confined space, to trench rescue, any engine operations classes, any truck company operations classes, any of that type of stuff. And
Pablo, do you know the website off the top of your head?
You have to Google the National Rescue Consultants.
Okay.
It'll just pop up right away. It should be National Rescue Consultants.com. They have an Instagram page. They have a Facebook page, and then obviously the internet. But National Rescue Consultants.com. And as far as any like search classes and stuff like that, search and rescue classes through Build Your Culture, Sean's got, like, I know he's booked through the end of the year to the point that I've actually had to deny a couple things. So go ahead, Sean.
Yeah. So I'll try and make it brief. Rest of December, we got some online classes for our brothers and sisters in Canada. We're doing 2 of those this month. I believe the 16th and the 19th. That'll be the searchable versus survivable class. So I'll be able to put that link up on my Facebook page and stuff like that. So if you're interested, feel free to go ahead and look at it there. As far as January goes, we got another search class here in Michigan, and then we got a couple of lectures to do for the City of Ann Arbor Fire Department. Moving on through the rest of the year, February we got to Orlando Fire Conference.
There you go, Orlando. That's what I was thinking about. Orlando Fire Conference in February.
Yeah, Orlando Fire Conference. We'll be doing that. Our air pack, or our SCB Confidence class there. March, we're looking at North Florida Fire Expo. We'll be up there. Also be at the Lift Fire Conference in Louisiana. April, of course, we got FDIC, so we'll be doing that. May, I don't know what we got in May. I'm sure there's something I'm forgetting, but July is Revolutionary Fire Tactics at the Lake, and then we got a couple of other classes here and there throughout the year that are just,
which will be at Margaritaville this year.
Oh yeah, Margaritaville is gonna be great.
That's gonna be crazy.
But yeah, a couple one-off classes here and there, a couple day trips, things like that. So that's pretty much it. Our schedule, like I said, is pretty booked until October. So
Awesome.
Totally blessed to have that. There's definitely worse problems to have. I'm glad that people are enjoying the training and want to get it. So
well, I appreciate you guys for coming in and jumping on board tonight. I have definitely grown much more as a firefighter knowing you two than I did before. meeting you guys out in Missouri at Lake of the Ozarks. So, thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming out on National Fire Radio tonight. And thank you to Melissa for jumping in with me so I didn't have to do this alone. So hang out for a couple minutes. We're going to wrap this up here. So everybody, it's Rob, National Fire Radio, with Pablo and Sean from Build Your Culture, and our field correspondent, Melissa Lawlor. Thank you for coming in and joining us tonight. We appreciate you being here. Everybody be safe out there, and we'll catch you later.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in this week and listening to another episode on the National Fire Radio podcast channels. We truly appreciate the support. We thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to our interviews, our roundtables, our discussions. It means the world. Like, share, leave a comment. The more we engage, the more we can grow and push the word out and keep making this job better.